What's going on, everybody? It's Coach Bronson here. I have today's guest is Amy Berger. Amy's been around the keto space for a very long time. We're going to talk about some cool things going on. She's got a new book that you worked on that you when did that come out?
If you're talking about End Your Carb Confusion, it actually came out 2020, like December 2020.
Wow.
So it's been
Okay.
out. It's been out a little while.
It's new, but it's been a while because I guess after the whole COVID thing and things got locked down, it's just like nobody's aware of anything. Like I didn't know anything that's been going on the last 18 months.
It wasn't the best time to release a book, but at the same time, everybody's home with time to read. So
right. So we're going to talk about the book a little bit. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, keto related. Amy, you've been around for a long time, so you've seen the gamut of all of the conversations that go on in the keto space and that kind of stuff. So, but before we get into that, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you click on the bell so you're notified every time I put it out in the video. But most importantly, share the information that you get from these videos with someone that you care about. The more information we can share, the more we can impact people's lives. All right. So Amy, tell us real quick, just a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, in case anybody's not familiar with your work.
Sure. I'm a nutritionist and I specialize in low carb and ketogenic diets. And I'm an author. So I've written a couple of books about, related to keto. And I do private consultations, but I also do group coaching through Adapt Your Life Academy with Dr. Eric Westman. And I also do a lot of freelance writing in health and nutrition, most of it related to keto and low carb. But I came into this the way a lot of other people do. I used to be heavier, and I was heavier despite doing what I thought were all the right things.
Right.
Putting light margarine on my whole wheat toast and putting milk on my high fiber cereal.
Yep.
And I did not know why I could not lose weight, no matter how much I exercised, no matter, I was eating what I thought was a good diet.
Mm-hmm.
And, long story short, nutshell version, I came across the Atkins diet. Okay. And unfortunately, the Atkins diet has gotten this very undeserved bad reputation in the keto world when Dr. Atkins was brilliant, way ahead of his time. And really, anyone who's having any success in the modern incarnation of keto really owes Dr. Atkins a huge debt of gratitude. Yep. So, sorry, my hair is flowing all over my face.
I know. I hate when that happens. It's really annoying.
That's where I started. And I wasn't always a keto nutritionist. I changed careers because I was in and out of a lot of jobs that I didn't really find fulfilling. And it occurred to me one day, oh, nutritionist is a career. Like maybe I could go back to school and get some type of formal training and help other people learn about this great low carb diet. So that's exactly what I did. And now I do help other people with it, but I always make a point in every interview I do to say that I came into it personally for weight loss, but and I know that's what so many people are interested in is the weight loss, but over the years that I've learned the power of this way of eating, what it does metabolically and biochemically, the profound improvement in health that you can have. You can literally reverse diabetes, reverse PCOS, metabolic syndrome. So I feel like at this point, weight loss is one of the least impressive things that you can accomplish. Not that weight loss isn't a big deal, but it's like you can have this amazing transformation in health. Oh, and you might also, drop a few pounds along the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, isn't it the transformation in health that actually facilitates the weight loss, the fat loss?
I think so. And
because you can lose weight a ton of different ways and not change your health.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's in my opinion anyway, the lowering of the insulin level helps facilitate burning fat. And this, everybody talks about the insulin fairy. I'm not saying everything, it only has to do with insulin and blood sugar, but that really is a huge part of it for so many of us, that when you sort of stop eating so much carbohydrate, your blood sugar normalizes and the insulin comes down. Your body has a much easier time accessing and burning all the fat.
Yeah. Now, just curious, you were doing other things before you got certified. You went and got your degree, your master's in nutrition, then you got your CNS. I totally been through that whole process with someone. And then you got into general nutrition and then keto, or you did that specifically to focus on keto?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I was already eating low carb and keto before I went back to school. So
Okay.
I feel like I didn't have to unlearn a conventional type of nutrition or dietetics
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
I know a lot of registered dietitians and nutritionists who went through regular training, the conventional thing, and learned about low carb after and sort of had their world turned upside down. I was already eating low carb for a few years before I went to school. And actually, it was interesting because learning about some of those biochemical pathways,
Mhm.
I like the light bulb went like, oh, that's why keto does this thing. Oh, that's why
Yeah.
this works the way it does. So it was really like reinforcing,
Okay.
from the scientific basis, reinforcing what I had experienced in my own body.
Did you have any issues with some of the things that they were trying to teach and evangelize through that, or did you go through a course that was already aware of and kind of supported keto?
Right. It was kind of in between because
Okay.
I specifically chose the program I chose because I knew it wasn't going to be conventional,
Right.
food pyramid
Yeah. Yeah.
sponsored by
Yeah.
some grain company. And so I I was pretty fortunate in that most of my professors kind of knew, yeah, most people are probably eating a little too much carbohydrate,
Yeah.
and they weren't necessarily like keto friendly, but some of them, even the biochemistry professors especially, kind of knew there's nothing wrong with saturated fat, like looking at the biochemistry of these molecules,
Right.
they're not harmful to eat. And so it was I was pretty fortunate. Like I said,
Yeah.
I didn't have to I didn't have to memorize things that I knew to be factually incorrect.
Right.
So it was
That's the key. That's the big one, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because that makes the process harder. But then when you come out of it and you have to relearn everything, I feel bad for all the people that I know that are doing this now who went through traditional training, spent years in the traditional, mindset of what nutrition is, and then at some point just had to say, this isn't working. I need to figure out something else. And thank goodness they've been able
Yeah.
to. And in some cases, they're literally like, I mean, registered dietitians who are going against their code of ethics essentially to say,
Right.
look, I'm teaching, this is what I'm going to have people do because this is what's helping them get healthy, regardless of the guidelines. Like I'm going against what I said I would when I signed the line. I'm going against that. And you could take my license away if you want, but I'm trying to help people.
I will say though, a couple of things like we it's always been interesting to me how we all learn the same anatomy and physiology, we
Mhm.
learn the same biochemical pathways, and yet we can come away from that with such different interpretations. Like when I learned
Yeah.
beta oxidation or whatever, it's like, oh, low carb makes perfect sense.
Right.
Not that everybody needs to eat this way, but if you do have obesity, if you do have diabetes, it makes perfect sense. And someone else can look at the same thing and say, oh, no, we should eat low fat or we should eat vegetarian. And thank goodness, in case anyone watching or listening doesn't know, the American Diabetes Association, the ADA, in fact, has formally recognized low carb and very low carb diets as
Yes.
having, literally quoting from the 2019 paper, the most evidence for improving glycemia,
I didn't
the
know that.
most evidence for improving blood sugar. So a dietitian, a certified diabetes educator can no longer say that it's not appropriate to do a low carb diet because the American Diabetes Association, it's in writing, it's in a peer reviewed publication.
I didn't. So I knew that they had now said that that was quote unquote okay, but I didn't realize you said that it was the most.
The most
Wow.
evidence. Yeah,
The
I'll send you the link if you want. If you have like show notes, we can put it in
Yeah,
there.
that'd be fantastic. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So, well, I was going to ask the question, why keto and not something else, right? Why keto and not Whole30 or whole or paleo, whatever else? But I think you kind of answered that, right? It's the most evidence. It's the most evidence for doing what we want things to do for people.
Well, but I think I've had clients whom I recommended to eat more carbs.
Mhm.
So everything really depends on the individual person and what they're trying to accomplish. You know, where are they starting from and where do they want to go?
Mhm.
Not everyone needs a low carb diet or a keto diet. Like plenty of people do really well on something like a paleo diet that's just wholesome, nutritious foods.
Yeah.
And if something's working well for somebody, I'm not going to tell them they should do something different, but there's no denying that there's just a mountain of evidence for low carb. But I mean, look around the world. Healthy humans have been eating grains and fruit for, you know, a long time.
Mhm.
So those things are not harmful per se. It's really just about the context. What is the person's situation?
And it works the same way. I have this conversation with people a lot and saying, look, you know, just because something may be keto, it may be healthy based off of, even if it's all natural, whole foods, you know, low fiber, low carb, high protein, high fat, whatever. But if it's something that is affecting you negatively, then for you, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So you have to take that in context. It's not, there's no set box of things like this is going to work for everybody.
Oh, I'll give you an example from my own life. Just because, and even not even talking about keto cereal and keto granola and all this newfangled junk. I do not like avocados. Don't tell the keto police on me. I don't like avocados.
That on a keto channel.
But if you turn those avocados into guacamole, I'll put my whole face in the tub.
Interesting.
So like guacamole is kind of a binge food for me. So it's off limit. Just because it's a perfectly wholesome keto food or low carb food doesn't mean it's safe for me to eat.
That is a beautiful,
I can't.
I love that. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great analogy. I like that. Yeah, because it's about the person. And this is, I like to talk about bio-individuality with people and explain that it's really not bio-individuality. It's just plain individuality, right? It has nothing to do with your biology, because biologically, we're all basically the same, right? We all have blood, we all process food, like all that stuff is similar. It's epigenetics, it's environment, it's experience, it's how you were raised. There's so many things that go into what you like, what you don't like, what you think tastes good, what you don't think tastes good. Like there's so many different things that go into it, that you have to have some level of flexibility in figuring out what you can enjoy, sustain, and be successful doing, right? That's
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you've written, okay, first off, you were in the Air Force. How long were you in the Air Force for?
4 years. I just did one stint.
Okay. And I was looking at your bio, you're like, nothing crazy about being in the Air Force, but I got a GI Bill. That's how I got my master's degree. Like, yeah.
I did. That was the best. I got a free master's degree. Well, free. I mean, I exchanged 4 years of service for it.
Right. All right. Talking about keto, and I alluded to this earlier, that you've been around this space for a long time. When did you write your first book?
2017, but I had been eating a low carb diet for a long time before that.
Yeah. Okay. So how have you seen keto change? Let's talk about it from the definition of keto, like, because there's a lot of definitions. So when you first started hearing the word keto versus low carb, what was that? And then how has that kind of morphed over time?
Yeah, it's been a trip. I started eating a low carb diet probably around 2002.
Okay.
I knew about it in around 1999.
Wow. Okay.
I just didn't stick with it. That's when I found the Atkins diet. But like many people, I just wasn't ready to kind of do it for like, I was on and off, and then I was on. And when I really did this for the long haul, nobody called it keto. It was just low carb. Everybody called it low carb. And now most people call it keto, but it's really a problem because that puts the emphasis on being in ketosis or using those exogenous ketone products, measuring your ketones, rather than the number one most important part, which is actually the low carbohydrate intake. Yeah. I wish everybody still called it low carb, because that puts the main thing front and center.
Yeah. I'm glad. Well, so I was going to ask about that later on, is how important is it to be in ketosis? And you're absolutely right. I think having to make the distinction for people like that, there's a difference between therapeutic ketogenic diets and body composition or weight management, whatever you want to call it, ketogenic diets.
Right.
And they're different. And the emphasis of tracking your ketones and being fat prioritized is therapeutic. And 90% of the people that are doing it don't need to be worried about that. It's
Yeah,
more about what you're
that's
taking out than it is what you're, taking extra fat in.
yeah, that's a big part of it. Is like I was saying, keto means so many different things to different people, and it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, the way that you would construct your diet.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest changes I've seen over all these years is, like, when I was new to this, I couldn't have even fantasized about finding cauliflower rice at the store, like pre-made in the frozen section, zucchini noodles pre-made. Yeah. You had to do all of this by hand yourself. It wasn't even like a blink on the radar 15 years ago.
Yep.
And now it's everywhere. So it's great. But at restaurants now, no wait staff looks at you weird if you say, hold the bread or no bun. They don't. It's so common now. But it's so great to see how popular this has become. But because it's so popular, now we have everybody cashing in with the keto cookies and the keto cereal and the this and that. And some people can eat that and still get the results they want, but that trips a lot of other people up.
Most people can't. Yeah. It's a hard conversation to have a lot of times. With my clients, with people in groups that I work with, to say, look, if you're stuck where you are, you have to evaluate how much of the food are you eating is the same food you were eating before, it just has keto in front of it. Exactly. If that's the case and you're not seeing the progress you want, maybe there's something there that needs to change, like and that's a hard thing to just putting the word keto on something doesn't mean it's going to work. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about one of the reasons why keto works, the ketogenic diet. And I'll just say, I'll ask you this question and leave this open-ended, does keto work because you're reducing calories? Is it a calories in, calories out thing? Like, what is it about keto that makes it so effective?
So this is so controversial, right? People get so touchy about calories and insulin and da-da-da. I want to say it has nothing to do with calories. I think it's a little bit of both, because there seems to be something there. Dr. Atkins called it a metabolic advantage, that when your carbohydrate intake is very, very low, there's something about the shift that makes in your body that you can actually consume more calories and either burn more or still lose weight, even though your food intake is more than it was. It's the type of food is so different that the metabolic change that makes happen causes you to lose more weight. If I'm going to base off of what my co-author, Dr. Westman, says, and you'll see him on that cruise, keto, and a lot of other people will say this too, again, because of you're off that crazy blood sugar roller coaster, those crazy highs and lows. You took this nice, even, steady blood sugar. Insulin is much lower when you're not, cracking it up with all the carbs all day. That helps to reduce your appetite. Like, many people report after just a few days of keto, their hunger is much reduced. Sugar craving is reduced. So you eat less without even trying. So you are reducing calories, but the huge difference to me is that in keto, you do that without deliberate effort. You're not counting calories. You're not saying, I'm only allowed to have this much. You eat less because you're just not hungry. And so I think it's both. Like, I really have a hard time believing that you could eat the same calories of a cheesecake and steak and broccoli, and that's going to have the exact same effect weight-wise. Now, we know hormonally it doesn't, because even the people that say a calorie is a calorie, that doesn't mean they have the same hormonal effect. Does that hormonal effect help you lose more weight? I say it does.
Yeah.
Maybe not by a ton, but you know.
Sure. And then there's also the utilization of how your body uses the macros, right? Protein is used completely differently in the body than fat and carbs are. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the PE diet and Dr. Ted Naiman and how
Love me some Ted Naiman, yes.
And how that stuff works. So, I like to call it functional calories versus fuel calories, right? So protein is functional. It goes towards metabolic function. It doesn't go towards energy creation primarily.
Well, if you eat enough of it, it does. But for the most part, I mean, if your body has fat and carbs coming in, protein is not the first thing it's going to use for energy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so from just a standpoint of, looking at the total calories you're taking in, not all of those calories are actually going towards fuel. So it doesn't work like that. It's not a 1-to-1. I eat this much, this is how much I burn. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think okay. So you answered my question. It might be, but it probably isn't just calories in, calories out, right? One of the things I was looking through go ahead.
I was just going to say, because like you can gain weight on a ketogenic diet. You can gain fat. Ask me how I know. There's a reason I can't have the guacamole. Like you can't, just because you're in ketosis or just because something is very, very low in carbs doesn't mean you can eat a ton of it and lose weight.
Yep.
Like mayonnaise, people that have followed me elsewhere for a long time, I can't have mayonnaise in my house. Yeah. Because I don't have 1 tablespoon serving. I have half a jar.
No. Yeah. I'm the same.
Keto is not automatically a fat loss diet. You can't, there is such a thing as too many calories or too much fat on keto.
Okay, so this is the whole thing, right? The whole thing about keto is you have to eat fat to lose fat.
I think you have to not eat carbs, because here's the deal, right? What makes a diet ketogenic is not eating tons and tons of fat. It's not eating the carbs. The absence of the carbs is what flips that switch. Because here's the example that I give to people, and it's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. If it was about the fat, if you just ate more and more fat and that worked, you could eat 10 bagels. See, I'm from New York. You could eat 10 bagels. As long as you slathered them with enough butter and cream cheese, you would lose weight, because you're just eating gobs and gobs of fat. Or like the macros, let's say you added enough butter and cream cheese to those bagels that your fat macro is super high. You'd be in ketosis, you'd be losing weight. That's not how it works. It's not the tons and tons of fat. It's the lack of the carbs.
Yeah. I like to talk about it. And I included this in my book that's just coming out, which copy is on the way to you, by the way. There's a section I talk about don't chase ketones, right? Don't chase ketosis. And in there, I talk about, if I'm just thinking about this from the paradigm of excess fuel. If we think, okay, eating too many carbs is putting too much glucose into our system, that's raising insulin, all those creates inflammation, goes to body fat, all that stuff. It's extra fuel. When we have extra fuel, our body has to store it, and that's not good. If we have extra ketones, what is that? It's the same thing. It's extra fuel. It's fuel that our body's not using, so it has to store it. It has to do something with it that it's not prepared to do, and that causes the same issues. Just because it's fat over carbs doesn't really change anything. Excess fuel is excess fuel. Yeah. So, I mean, sorry. Yeah.
You said the ketones, though. I don't want to confuse people, but the ketones are fuel too.
Yes.
Ketones are fuel, but on a keto, see, this is the problem with calling it keto. Everyone's so hung up on the ketones. On a ketogenic diet, your main fuel is fat. It's not the ketones. The ketones are like this little byproduct that get created as a result of you breaking down fat. Your main fuel is not the ketones.
Yeah. Get rid of that body fat, people. Stop putting it in your face. All right. So in the book, Carb Confusion, that you did with Dr. Westman, you have a section in there that you talk about willpower. And I wanted you to hit on that. And because I think that's a really cool thing, because it's one of the biggest things that I see people struggle with, is they feel like it's all about how strong their brain is and how strong how they have to will themselves to success. And in a lot of ways, I think there's some obviously psychological things and some limiting beliefs and things that we can work with people and give them tools to overcome that. But I think even biologically and physiologically, there are things that can be done to help remove the idea that it's all about your willpower.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the stuff, some of that?
Yeah. Oh, I could not agree more with what you said. There's some degree of, I wouldn't even call it willpower. I call it knowledge.
Yeah.
Once you know what these foods do to your biochemistry, to your brain signaling, it's easier to stay away from them. So you might need as much discipline to just not eat them, because once you eat them, and by them, I mean, usually high sugar foods, even high starch, something like crackers or pretzels, things that aren't sweet, but they're refined carbs. For some people, even fruit, you know, just because it's natural or wholesome, some people still have a problem. It sort of triggers this thing in your brain that just wants more and more and more. And there's nothing wrong with you. That's how we're sort of programmed. That's what these do to it. It kind of hijacks your whole signaling. There is a reason you can't just eat one. None of us can. There's a reason.
There's a reason they melt in your mouth and not in your hands, right? Yeah.
They go hand to mouth syndrome. You know, you sit down with that bag of almonds from Trader Joe's, God help you. Like, God help you even more if they're chocolate covered almonds. You know? Literally, like, I hope people, it's like, if you take away nothing else from this, it's not your fault. You're not broken. This is what those foods do. They affect dopamine. They affect serotonin. There is a reason you feel better when you eat them for 5 minutes. An hour later, you feel like garbage, but like, it's willpower. The reason it's not about willpower is because you cannot use willpower to fight your biology. It is a physiological thing when you want the cup, when you have the icing and now you need the whole cupcake and now you need 4 more. You know, like literally, if you can't stop at one, nobody can. And it's because we are human beings with human bodies and brains. It's not you.
Yeah. Okay. What are some things that people can do? Like, you know, I know for me, I talk to people all the time about, you know, just the simple thing of prioritizing protein in their meals so they feel fuller throughout the day and they don't feel like they need to snack, right? If you eat more, if you have that more satiation at every meal, then the temptation to snack in between meals should go away for a lot of people, and things like that. What are some tips that you have for people to kind of help them use their physiology or change their environment or whatever it may be to kind of help them not have to use that willpower muscle as much?
Yeah, I think part of it, well, we'll get to the protein in a sec, because that is a huge part of it. Part of it is like we were saying with those foods before, you can't have one. For most of us, abstinence is just the best way to go. It's so much easier to have none than it is to say, I'll just have a little piece, because it never stops at just that little piece, ever. And we all know it. It didn't last time. It didn't the time before that, or the 400 times before that. So we've all done it. There's no, we're all friends here. So I think like that's step one. If you know certain foods are just, you'd cut them out of your life, like have the funeral, say goodbye, mourn them, and move on. But I think you brought up a really good point, because the protein, I don't know so much in men, but in women, we have been tragically brainwashed to think that our protein is supposed to be like this little 3 ounce, a deck of cards, the palm of your hand. And so women eat this little thing and a whole bunch of lettuce, and they wonder why 11 p.m. they're face first in the Ben and Jerry's. Because you're starving. You don't starve yourself. But yeah, I mean, if we weren't so afraid to have a nice, big, substantial piece of protein, well, whatever it is, beef, pork, chicken, seafood, lamb, eggs, I don't care. But, and in keto, especially, like, I think women across the spectrum, no matter what way you eat, we've been kind of told, oh, your protein should just be this little thing. In keto, especially, you've probably seen this. we hear that, too much protein spikes insulin or it turns into sugar. So on keto, especially, women are kind of like, oh, no. And this has done a huge disservice to us. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. If you would just fill up on a nice, big, substantial piece of protein, that's going to keep you satiated for a few hours. And it certainly, I think, helps ward off those cravings.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I take it you eat a lot of protein?
I do. I mean, well, but what's a lot? I mean, more than the average woman? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is probably the biggest challenge that I have. Most of my clients are women in their 40s and 50s, and it's a conversation I have almost every day. Right? You can eat more. It's okay. You can eat more. It's not
They're
gonna.
so used to the little kind bar. I don't want to name brands, but these little sweet, nutty honey granola bars or like high fiber thing. But you can't blame them. We've been told that this is the healthy stuff. You look at the package, whole grains, high fiber, lowers cholesterol. Like,
Sorry, guys, that's not how it works.
yeah.
So you'd mentioned something earlier about how you have some of your clients actually are okay eating carbs, and I have people that So I personally, I'm carnivore. I've been carnivore for 4 years. I don't eat carbs generally. Some whatever comes in my eggs or cheese pretty much is the only carbs that I get. But I do work with people who are like, look, I need my broccoli or Brussels sprouts or whatever it may be, or I'd like to have a potato every once in a while. It's like whatever we can do that's going to make them the healthiest and keep doing it the longest. If we have to sacrifice 25 grams of carbs for that to happen, hey, whatever works, like it's not that big a deal. But I've been hearing, particularly in the fitness space, I don't know where it comes from. I've heard people mention it and reference it, but I haven't seen a reference to where it comes from, is that people talking about how carbs reduce inflammation. And I don't know. I've like 5 or 6 people over the past 3 or 4 months have referenced it and saying, you need, obviously it's the whole argument of you need carbs to build muscle, you need carbs to do high intensity training, all this kind of stuff, which we know isn't a thing. That's a whole different conversation we can have. But the idea that carbs reduce inflammation, to me, I don't understand how anybody can say that, because I feel like it's been shown time and time again that that's not the case.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're saying that. And my question would be, because I'm not familiar with this actually.
Yeah.
What's their definition of inflammation? When somebody eats carbohydrate, what exactly happens? What are they measuring that they know there's less inflammation? Do they just feel better? They have less pain, or are they looking at a biomarker? How are they defining this?
Okay, I can try to follow up and see. I just have heard that statement in conversations and in posts and threads and different stuff all over. I'm like,
I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't know what they're like.
Because from my understanding, you can tell me if I'm wrong. From my understanding is that we know that fat produces less oxidative stress, less free radicals. And to me, that's the definition of inflammation, and oxidative stress and inflammation pretty much to me go hand in hand. So is that what your understanding of fat being the primary source? Is that, let's just take it to the mitochondrial level and say mitochondria produce less. There's less oxidative stress in that process for mitochondria.
That's my understanding of the research. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I'm like, I don't understand where that could be coming from.
But it's funny, if just to sort of like speculate here.
Yeah.
Coming from the fitness world specifically, that's not my area of expertise, but why would you want to reduce inflammation now you don't want to be inflamed all the time, but inflammation is how the body repairs, and that's what builds the muscle. Am I wrong in that? You have to have that damage, you have to tear it down. That's the inflammation, and the repair is what strengthens those muscle fibers. So like you might not necessarily want to lower the inflammation. I mean, unless we're not talking about the chronic low grade, like
I'm not. Yeah, no, it's there. The discussions have been around recovery, people saying that they need carbs to recover post workout. And that is absolutely the opposite of everything that I've studied and researched. It's also the opposite of everything, every client I've ever worked with, and myself specifically, that the more carbs you have, the worse your recovery is. So I just didn't know if you'd heard anything about carbs reducing inflammation anywhere. Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm not the only one that hasn't heard anything about that, so that's good. Speaking about carbs, there is definitely discussion. A lot of people, I don't know, I won't say a lot, but another topic I've heard in the keto space is people with thyroid issues saying that they need carbs in order to have a healthy thyroid. What's your take on that? I'm not even going to make any of my assertions there. I'm going to let you run with that one.
Well, how much time do we have? I'm very passionate about thyroid. My next book is going to be on thyroid, and it's not a keto book at all. It's just going to be thyroid. So some people with hypothyroid, specifically Hashimoto's disease, which is the autoimmune type of hypothyroidism.
Yep.
Some people with Hashimoto's go on a low carb or ketogenic diet and feel much better. Some of them are actually able to reduce and then stop the thyroid medicine. I mean, this happens. Other people, not so much. Other people, if you come in with hypothyroidism, keto doesn't have any magical healing properties. To some of the people who claim to experience thyroid problems because of keto, and this is something that we do here, I really think for the most part, it's not low carb or keto per se that did it. We have a lot of women who are in the habit, like we were saying before, under eating and over exercising, and they're like overtaxing the body. There's so many demands. Do you know Rob Wolf?
Yeah.
Rob Wolf calls it like the allostatic load, the total load of stress on your body, be it stress because you're doing CrossFit 80 times a week, or you're not sleeping, you've got a ton of commitments, and you're barely eating. You're doing all that exercise with this much protein.
Yep.
It's actually perfectly logical that your thyroid hormones would lower intentionally to decrease your metabolic rate so that you don't burn out and die.
Right.
That's a protective mechanism to force you to slow down, because otherwise you're gonna fry yourself. So we don't see these thyroid problems in women, and I say women because it's so much more common in women than men do get thyroid problems, but it's much less frequently than in women.
Yeah.
We don't see this in women who are starting out with morbid obesity and type 2 diabetes. We don't see these problems. I'm not saying these problems don't develop, but I don't think it's low carb or keto per se. I think it's that sort of overtaxing the body and under nutrition.
Yeah. That
being said, I am going to be the devil's advocate. I was on another podcast recently about this exact thing. There might be some people who, for what, and I am not sure of the mechanism.
Yeah.
Where the thyroid gland or the feedback system does respond uniquely to calories from carbohydrate and not from protein and fat. It may be that there is something unique signaling wise about carbohydrate. So I never say never. Yeah. I'm never going to accuse someone of like being dishonest if, well, I ate more carbs and I felt better. I just think I don't want that fear mongering to scare people away from trying a diet that could quite literally change or save their life.
Absolutely. Right. Because chances are, if they're having that problem, there's other things that are happening as well, right? So that could still be affected. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think it goes into the realm of diet versus lifestyle. And you talk about that conversation, and a lot of people, another common mistake I see a lot of people do is they start doing a ketogenic diet and immediately assume that because they're on a diet, they need to eat less. And not understanding that, no, the idea is to change what you're eating, not reduce what you're eating, right? And it's about quality. It's about giving your body something that's not going to stress it out and cause a bunch of problems. You don't necessarily need to starve yourself while you do this, which is why for like beginners, especially, I don't recommend fasting. I don't recommend a lot of these biohacks and things like that. It's like, get the foundation of just eating enough food and making the right choices first. If you feel like you need to tweak it and do some things down the road, that's fine, but make sure you got the basics first, you know?
You are so speaking my language. And you're like one of the few people that I actually hear say that. Most people who come to me for help are already doing some variation of a low carb or keto diet, and they just need help. They need to like figure out what am I doing wrong.
Yep.
Once in a while, I get someone who's new. And when I get, or if somebody kind of needs a reset, needs to get back to the basics,
Yep.
I tell them exactly what you just said. I don't want you to worry about calories. I don't want you to worry about how much you're eating, or even how often or when. Oh, eating late at night is a sin, whatever. No, I don't care what time of day it is. I don't care if you're having one meal or 4 or 5 small meals.
Yep.
Just worry about keeping the carbs really low. Get your body used to being without the sugar and starch.
Mm-hmm.
See how far that alone gets you, because it'll get you a good ways.
Right.
Then, like you said, then let's see if maybe you want to put a time restriction on it, or then start exercising, or what maybe, I don't know what, like then maybe start, oh, maybe I am overdoing the bacon a little bit here.
Right.
Because even like when I get a lot of people who struggle, like they're doing keto, but you know, they say I'm an emotional eater.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Westman says, can you not emotionally eat carbs? Like, so if somebody's going through a crisis or something, or everything's crazy, ideally they would stick to their normal good plan. But if you can't, if you do need to reach for something to self-soothe, better to self-soothe with a stick of pepperoni or an extra pork chop or extra cheese than self-soothing with a family-sized bag of potato chips.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it means you're overeating, or you know, eating too much fat, metabolically speaking, I think it's like safer, so to speak, to at least.
Yeah, I was just talking to Coach Nat, my girlfriend. I don't know if you met her at Salt Lake or not. Mm-hmm. The other day, I was like, you know, when I go off plan, for me, off plan just means eating more meat. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna hit my macros today. Okay, I guess I'll just eat another steak.
Plan, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm off plan, you know. And that's how it should be. Like, you know, it's not I'm going off plan. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go eat 5 pizzas. It's I'm just gonna have more. Awesome. Okay, so we could talk forever. We still got a few minutes, but we're not even halfway through my list of topics.
I mean, I can stay a little longer, but we can just do a part 2 sometime.
Yeah, maybe we could. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about what is in the book. You talk about a carb threshold. Could you break that down and explain a little bit? And then we can go right from there into maybe talk a little bit about Adapter Life and what that is, what the plan in the book is all about and how that works. And then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks. So our book, End Your Carb Confusion, is mostly a low carb keto book, but we recognize that, like we said earlier, not everybody needs an ultra strict ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. You know, plenty of people eat beans and they eat fruit and they maybe even eat grain and they're fine. So we have 3 different levels of carbohydrate that we recommend, and we have food lists for all 3. And just the more severely your health is compromised, the worse situation you're in health-wise, the more severe you need to be. So like you would be the strictest, lowest carb.
Yep.
If you're healthy and active and already kind of fit and lean and you want to stay that way, you get the most generous. But they're all lower carb than like a standard Western American type diet. But we have a checklist. So like if you have type 2 diabetes, if you have PCOS, if you have metabolic syndrome, it's going to, you fill out the list and then it points you to the threshold that's right for you.
Okay. So it's like a survey. You fill out the survey and it tells you, okay, if you got this many points here, then you're level 1. If you're level 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I mean, we say this in the book, like as much as I love low carb and keto, I mean, I've built my career out of it. It would be stupid of me to say that cantaloupe causes diabetes, or like honeydew causes obesity. Like we're getting,
Right.
but some keto people go to that kind of ridiculous extent. I don't want to be in that crazy wacko camp. So some people can tolerate higher amounts of fruit, starch, whatever.
Yeah.
Many of us can't. And then we also recommend in the book, we're not recommend, we mention, you might be starting off from a place of obesity or diabetes or gout, hypertension, whatever. And you lose 50 pounds, you lose 100 pounds, all your medical stuff is gone. Now you can decide, do you want to just stay on ultra low carb forever, which you can, or do you want to experiment a little bit and reintroduce small amounts of these foods and see how you do?
Yeah, go from level 1 to level 2 or something
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that some people, a lot of people will do best just staying low forever, but some people can ratchet up.
Yeah, I like that because one of the reasons I really appreciate the book and the way that you guys do that is because it's kind of similar to how I approach the development and progression of people. And I explain it like finances, and I say, look, if you're severely obese, have a lot of health issues, you are in health debt. You have thousands of dollars in health debt, and you can't afford to go out and spend money on other things, right? So you have to be as strict as possible and limit your expenses, is what I call it, right? Carbs are expenses. You have to limit your carbs, and processed foods and all that kind of stuff. But the healthier you get, the more money you get back in your account. When you get to the point where you're at break even again, now you're at a point where you're like, okay, I probably still need to save some because I don't have surplus. I'm not in debt anymore, but I don't have a lot I can spend. So maybe I can go out and splurge every once in a while and spend some money and have some carbs, do some stuff, but it's not like I can go crazy. If you get to a point where now you've got everything worked out, you're at the gym all the time, you're super lean, you're healthy, you're having the time of your life, and you're like, hey, I've got more money in the bank than I know what to do with, then you have the freedom to do some more things with it. So that's kind of how I explain it, but it's basically the same kind of thing.
That is an amazing analogy. I love that. And I've never heard that before. And you had the with the protein calories, what did you say? Constructive calories?
Functional calories versus fuel calories.
That's amazing. I'm going to steal, I mean, borrow those from you. No, those are really like this. People need it explained in a like, okay, here's this really complex thing.
Right.
Tell it to me in plain English. That bank account thing is dynamite.
Yeah. So I feel like it does. It helps people kind of go, oh, I'm in debt right now. Crap. Wait a minute. So the book has been out for a little bit. Now, I just found out too, I didn't realize there's a companion book. There's a cookbook that actually you can get as well, right?
The cookbook is like brand new, hot off the press. I think it's called the End Your Carb Confusion cookbook.
Yeah. Okay. So and now so you get those two together, and does it have like in the cookbook, does it say like this is a level 1 recipe, or does it break things down like that?
Yeah, it is broken out by each phase, but we deliberately created it so most of the recipes by far are phase 1, the lowest carb. Because here's the thing, people that can eat phase 2 and 3 can eat phase 1, like they can eat low carbs. Right. The people on phase 1 can't eat the higher stuff. Everybody can eat all the phase 1, so that's why there's the most.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. So people can get both of those, End Your Carb Confusion, the book, and then also the cookbook. Fantastic. Where can people find you, Amy?
I have a website, but it's in desperate need of overhaul. The best place to find me is probably on Twitter. Okay. My handle is Tuit Nutrition. It's TUIT Nutrition. My YouTube channel has the same name, Tuit Nutrition. And that's my website. My website is tuitnutrition.com, but it needs an overhaul. Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned Adapt Your Life. If the website is very long, but adaptyourlifeacademy.com, okay. We create online courses about keto and how to do it safely and sanely without losing your mind. And we have a course on cholesterol. We actually just started one on food addiction, which is like I was saying earlier with the dopamine and the serotonin, these trigger foods. So that's a great place to find us, adaptyourlifeacademy.com.
Fantastic. And are you going to be speaking? You're going to be at the conference this week?
I will be attending Metabolic Health Summit. I'm not speaking. Okay. And I'll be at, where's my next one? I'll be at I should be at Low Carb USA San Diego in August, and
I'm
then
hoping to be there.
there's
I'm hoping to be there.
oh, okay, good. There's something in Louisville, Kentucky in September that I'll Keto Palooza, so I'll be
Palooza, yep.
there. That's it for now, I think.
Okay.
Actually, I forgot, if anyone happens to be watching this in the Netherlands, there's an ancestral health symposium in Amsterdam on June 11th. I will be there in Amsterdam.
That's awesome.
Gary Taubes, I think, is going to be there. Dr. Westman will be there. It's going to be like, wow.
That's crazy. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. Well, thank you
you
very much for being on, Amy. I appreciate it. Do you have anything you want to leave people with?
I guess just reinforce, keto's great.
Mhm.
Not everybody needs it. But if you have been wanting to do a low carb or keto diet, or you think you have been, but it's not working, you're not getting where you want to go, hunker down or get the book End Your Carb Confusion, follow the phase 1 list, because you might be kind of like tinkering with those net carbs, and you're eating that keto bread and the keto cereal, and you're not going to get the full effect of this way of eating unless you really get that stuff out, and then your body will really make that transition. I see that all the time. So you can do it on any budget. It's okay if your food is not organic, pasture raised. If you can afford that, great. If you can't, get what's on sale at the store, and don't let anyone shame you for it.
Absolutely. Do what you can afford, right? It's better than the other stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.